The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is presented for information and entertainment only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed therein are not the opinion of Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Welcome to this week's episode of the Fed15 podcast presenting by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll be here discussing the latest news and info that Feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you're a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15 has got you covered. Now grab your coffee, kick back, and we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed this week. We're your hosts, Katelyn Murray.
I'm Dan Sipe. And I'm frequently the reason we go past 15. So you saw me facially react to that. So
Dan is the ish in the 15 minutes-ish or less.
Yes, I'm ish. Thank you.
I don't know though. When we talk about HSAs, I tend to get pretty locked on. I can take.
Well, you hate them, right?
No, I love them.
I know.
Look at that. He baits me all the time. HSAs are incredible, but we will not be talking about them today, sadly. But we do have some great topics on the calendar for today. Dan, what are we talking about?
Yeah, we do. Well, last week, Katelyn, you touched on the fact there was a survey done that a lot of people don't have their hands around Social Security. We're going to try and fix some of that today. And then you, Katelyn, have a very saucy topic, which is a class action lawsuit around TSP. This is not something that happens a lot, folks. So when it does, we're certainly going to talk about it.
Definitely. Yeah, well, let's get into some Social Security overview information. Now, Social Security is a topic that a lot of our feds are very curious to know about. Social Security, obviously not something that is strictly a federal employee benefit, but definitely one of those legs. We talk about the three-legged stool all the time, the pension, Social Security, and your investment portfolio. Dan, you want to give us kind of an overview to address?
Not just an overview, because it wouldn't be me if I didn't get a few fun facts in here.
Exactly.
So, quick history. Social Security was signed into law by FDR in 1935, started taxing in 1937. Katelyn, did you know that the original benefits were paid out lump sum for the whole year?
Lump sum? Wow.
Yep. All at once. Survivor benefits were added in 1939. Monthly checks began in 1940. Disability benefits were created in 1956. You know what else was created in 1956?
Dan side?
Me, yes, absolutely. And
it was a good year.
Yes, absolutely. And 1961, they added the ability to claim early at age 62. And that's kind of a good segue here, because I want to stress this. Folks, we are an active planning practice. So we are out in the trenches, working with you, meeting with you. One of the number one misconceptions is, I claim my Social Security at 62. That's claiming early, which means that you're accepting a permanent reduction for life. Permanent reduction for life. I do not consider those to be a good combination of words. Okay, so we want to try and avoid that. Full retirement age, for most folks listening to this, is going to be late 60, late 66 to 67. Most folks are listening to this. If you claim early at that 62, another thing that's a hitch, there's an earnings test. So if you decided to pick up a part-time job and you made more than about $21,000 a year, for every $2 that you made over that, you're going to give $1 back. Now, it will true up later, when you get to full retirement age, but you may or may not live long enough to receive all of it. So something to keep in mind. Don't just jump when that happens. So let's get into one thought on that. The no-brainer, in my opinion, for when to claim Social Security specifically is if, God forbid, you're infirm. And we don't want that to be the case with any of our listeners. But if you are, then claiming early might make sense. After that, full retirement age, I think, is the sweet spot. if you ever want to connect with us, we can walk you through. And my partner designed this. Basically, we call it the Shark Tank test. Okay, so if you decide to wait until 70, not take it at 67, you're investing your money for 3 years, hoping for a good rate of return. So you're not taking money that you could have taken for 3 years. And they talk about the break-even point. And I've seen it estimated all over the place. So let's say on the shortest ones I've ever seen, it's around 12 years. What a break-even point means, and this credit goes to Tom Lee for clarifying this. A break-even point means you made an investment and you got a 0 rate of return. I'll say that again. You made an investment and you left it there for over a decade and got a 0 rate of return. I take that into the Shark Tank and Mr. Wonderful's kicking me off the carpet and telling me to take it around behind the barn and shoot it. Okay, so we can always get back to that. If you ever want to spend time with us, we can walk you through it in a one-on-one, and we're happy to do that. So all feds have something unique with Social Security, all of them. Okay, so if you're in FERS, you have access to something called the Special Retirement Supplement. So if you're going out an MRA, and we have some strong thoughts about that, okay, if you want to go out an MRA, you also need massive retirement assets. That's the other MRA. But if you're going at before age, the ability to take Social Security age 62, you have something called the Special Retirement Supplement, which is based on your Social Security, and it sort of fills that gap. So that's something for the FERS folks. Unfortunately, the special stuff for the CSRS folks is not an addition. It's typically a subtraction. And that's the windfall elimination provision, which applies to CSRS, offset, transfers. You could have your Social Security benefits reduced if you don't meet certain criteria. We have lots that we've written on that throughout the site. You can look it up there, or you can get time with us. Government pension offset has to do with what your survivor will get, and that can be reduced also. So those are important things to keep in mind. Kind of to round it out, Katelyn, one of the nice things is that Social Security does have COLAs, and they are based on the CPI. Another point, if you're in Medicare, you can have those premiums deducted. So in our 2023 COLA was 8.7%. That's awesome. And further, Medicare costs dropped in that same year. So that's some pretty good news there. So hopefully we took care of a couple of your misunderstandings for Social Security. And this isn't the last time we'll revisit it. Again, if you want to take a look at yours individually, you can hit us up at scwsurf.com. We'll help you any way we can.
Absolutely.
So Katelyn.
Yeah. And I do recommend, by the way, just one more note on Social Security. I do recommend having an individualized strategy, because although Social Security is something that is accessible to everyone will approach that differently. There's unique factors that we need to factor in, like longevity. What's your health like? What's your planning like? What are those other legs of the stool look like? What's pension looking like? What's your investment assets looking like? The really captivating thing I think about financial planning is that all of this stuff is interconnected. And so we can't, while we look at the individual elements from an educational standpoint, you really do need to pull it all together in an individualized way in order to kind of understand what you've got and really get your hands around your benefits. So yeah, definitely take a look.
Absolutely. Yep. So,
TSP.
So Katelyn, yes, a class action lawsuit. This doesn't happen every day. So what's going on there?
Yeah, Dan is chomping at the bit for the hot tea on that topic.
Spill the tea.
So TSP, lots happened last year. It was a big year for TSP. There were a lot of different changes, right? And that is really, really important context. We have a great article on the blog this week that gives you a really detailed overview of this lawsuit, and we're going to kind of talk through it now. But the context is, in summer 2022, the TSP made a number of sweeping changes. Now, these changes were long overdue. These were things that, needed to be done. However, maybe not all at once, maybe with a little more prep work. Gentle suggestion.
Well, it's everything everywhere all at once, isn't it, Katelyn?
Yes.
I mean,
yes. That would be a good subtitle, actually, for this. TSP added a mobile app. They added a chat bot with the hopes of trying to get people quicker answers to their questions, because there's a long turnaround a lot of times on getting questions answered. They added a new record keeper as well, Accenture, which meant a new website. Most paper forms were actually replaced by electronic signatures. I am a fan of e-signature. I think it makes everybody's life easier. But again, another change. And then probably the biggest change, they added a mutual fund window. Now, the mutual fund window, we could do a whole podcast episode on just that. I will try to restrain myself on those details. But it basically opens your TSP up to give you 5,000 new investment choices that cross they kind of span the gamut of what's available. However, in order to see what's available, you have to opt in. And when you opt into the mutual fund window in the TSP, there are several administrative expenses that go along with that. And these expenses are annual. So you can expect a $55 annual administration fee and a $95 annual maintenance fee. And that is just to get in the door, $150 per year. Then when you start trading, you need to be concerned with the trading fees. Those are $28.75 per trade. So when you're buying and selling, you need to be aware that that does come with a price tag in that mutual fund window.
Sure.
Of course, when we say mutual fund window, we are talking about in comparison with the 5 TSP funds that probably everyone listening to this podcast knows: your G fund, your F fund, your CS, your I. So those were all of the changes. Lots of changes happening in the TSP last year. And, and
it all went well, right?
Yeah, and it all went perfectly. And that's the end of the episode.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
No, as you can expect, there were quite a few problems with that new website. Because of the new record keeper, everybody had to redo their login credentials. A lot of people got locked out of their TSP. If you are listening to this episode, I would bet that there is a pretty good probability that somebody listening to this episode got locked out of their TSP last year when things changed. Call centers were unprepared for this, because what's the first thing you do when you get locked out of your account?
Call.
Pick up the phone and try to call somebody. So call centers were totally unprepared. Hold times sometimes exceeded 2 hours in some cases. For some, beneficiary information was not carried over from the old system to the new. Now, that is a big deal. With our Serving Those Who Serve clients that we meet with when we do annual review meetings, just to check up on the financial planning, make sure we haven't changed goals, see how the investment accounts are doing, and kind of give the client a comprehensive review. One of the items in that comprehensive review is, have you taken a look at your beneficiary information this year? I like to have people check in on that once a year, because things change, people die, people get born, and you need to make sure that it's up to date. With a record keeping change like that, typically beneficiary information is transferred over. It's a white glove sort of transfer. That was not the case here. Several people's beneficiary information was dropped completely, which could have had catastrophic outcomes. So if you have a TSP and you are listening to this podcast, please do me a favor. Do my blood pressure a favor. Okay, go check your beneficiary information, please. Just check it for me. Make sure it's there. If it's not there, go ahead and add it. Okay? Because you want to make sure, your people are taken care of and your wishes are carried out. So the other big thing that kind of came out of all of that chaos is Accenture, the new record keeper, formally apologized to the board that oversees the TSP for the botched transition. They made a formal apology to the FRTIB. As a result of all of the kind of chaotic goings on, there has been recently filed this class action lawsuit. So 7 TSP participants got together and filed a class action against TSP, Accenture, who is the new record keeper, and Alight, who is a federal contractor that was involved with the transfer of data from the old record keeper to
They're also wrapped
the
up in the mutual fund window.
Yeah. Yep. So those 3 parties are the parties who are being litigated here. So one plaintiff filed for a TSP loan. So he had applied for a TSP loan, never received the cash, but it did appear online.
Yep.
So the debit appeared, but the cash never showed up, which is a problem. In October, TSP started demanding payments for the loan and threatened default. He finally received the money from the loan it was on December 19th of 2022. That was 6 months after he first applied for that loan.
It's a long time.
Yeah, That's a long time. So very big issue there. Another plaintiff was a widow of a TSP account owner who passed away in September 2022. Now, this one is rough. She was unable to receive TSP death benefits for 3 months. She mailed, she faxed, and she emailed the death certificate over 13 times to the TSP. Mm-hmm. And as a result of the loss of income, she almost lost her home after having lost her spouse. So, these are one thing that I want to underscore. I think TSP has so many account holders. It's such a massive group of people. It is the biggest retirement plan, that you can conceive of.
Sure.
But all those people are people with real lives. Well, I mean, we're talking to them now. We talk to them every day, in the course of our business. And these big changes and the lack of preparedness going into those big changes had very, very, very real ramifications for federal government employees. So we will be kind of following that case. Obviously, if there are updates, we will be sure to provide them for you both on our blog and here. If you're interested to read more about that lawsuit, like I said, we've got a really good article on our blog that kind of gives a good overview and kind of takes you through all of that. But yeah, we will definitely be following that story.
Yeah. And our hearts go out to anybody else who was in kind of these types of problems, because you're in a bad place. You need the money. You need the money quickly. That is a reasonable expectation. So
Exactly. So all the more reason to stay educated on your benefits. If you are over 59 and a half, you have options. You do not have to stay tied to the TSP. There is such a thing as an in-service rollover. If you don't know what that is, talk to us. You can attend one of our webinars. We'd be happy to educate you on that.
Yep. Hit us up at the website, swserve.com. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. It went so fast. We'll be back next week with all the latest updates you need to make informed decisions in your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
Absolutely. And be sure to subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel, FedLife, so that you never miss an episode. And please, please do remember to share it with your friends and colleagues. It is the number one thing you can do to support us, and it is absolutely 100% free. So please do share, spread the word.
And for more information on the topics covered today and more, check out our blog at blog.swserve.com and subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving. We will send our best to you each and every week. You don't have to do nothing. Okay, It just shows up, open it, and read it.
Definitely. And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for feds, we really encourage you to join us for one of our complimentary webinars. They are always free, and they are also no obligation. We have a couple of good ones coming up. On July 7th, we have a FERS retirement benefits webinar that's coming up from 1 to 4 p.m. Yep. We also have, if you're curious to learn more about Social Security, I know Dan gave us a really good overview, but there's a lot of eccentricities in there. Our next Social Security benefits webinar is on July 25th. So you can check that out there. And then we've got a TSP planning webinar coming up on July 20th. So definitely recommend heading on over to the website and taking a look at the different webinars that we have coming up. We cover all the different major components of federal retirement benefits. So check that out. Or if you prefer, if you're not a webinar person, if Zoom kind of exhausts you over a while, I know Zoom fatigue was a big thing during COVID. If you want to do a one-on-one approach, feel free to reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at ask@stwserve.com. And that way you can meet with our planners one-on-one and, talk through some financial planning topics and kind of ways that we might be able to help.
Absolutely. So folks, thanks for listening to the Fed15. I'm Dan Sipe.
And I'm Katelyn Murray.
And we will see you next week.
Take care.